and welcome to today's session. As always, I'm your host, Kevin Grobe, Staff Systems Engineer here at VMware. When we talk about end-user computing, one of the conversations that eventually always comes up is around security. I mean, after all, it is the user's device. They're going to use it in ways that IT probably didn't intend. And when we look at, the influx of, bring your own device into the enterprise, it becomes all the more prevalent. Now, talking about end users and talking about security often means restriction. Now, while this in some cases may be true, there are also whole new ways to look at end user security through the integration of things like NSX for software-defined networking and per application microsegmentation, as well as that integration into mobile device management with Airwatch. So today we have a very special session from a gentleman named Chris Larkins. Chris is an NSX specialist here at VMware, and I reached out to him and I asked him to put together a quick session that explains the importance of why NSX and Airwatch snap together, what it means to the enterprise, and how to get started with this technology. So without anything further, let's join Chris and learn more about NSX and Airwatch and how security and MDM fit together inside of VMware's bigger vision.
Hi, my name is Chris Larkins. I'm an NSX specialist with VMware, and I'm here today to provide a quick overview of how our customers use NSX with Airwatch to create a secure mobile workplace. To start out today, we'll be doing a quick overview of NSX itself and discuss some of the challenges we're seeing with regards to security, especially in the world of mobile phones and tablets and BYOD. And then finally, we'll talk through how NSX and Airwatch can help solve some of those challenges with microsegmentation and app-level user access. And then we'll talk through some additional resources. So what is NSX? NSX, simply put, is VMware's platform for network virtualization as part of our software-defined data center strategy. Now, I realize that's somewhat of a complicated explanation, but hopefully over the next 20 minutes or so, I can provide some context, definition, and some clarity to some of those terms. So the software-defined data center. At VMware, we believe that by moving network and security services into the data center virtualization layer, data center operators are really able to achieve an operational model that looks more like a VM than a traditional data center model. It's really now possible to programmatically create and snapshot, store, move, delete, restore entire application environments with the same simplicity and speed that we've traditionally had spinning up a virtual machine. Our thought with NSX is that we need a new approach to networking. The software-defined data center takes a very different view of the data center entirely than we've traditionally had. And we provide a fundamentally more secure and more agile data center. And NSX is really the foundation of that SDDC, or software-defined data center. A typical data center, as we all know, consists of a physical network, physical storage devices, and physical compute assets. With a software approach, these components are still there. They remain in place. But there's really no need to add any new hardware to the data center, because on top of that physical layer of infrastructure that we have today, we have a virtualization layer that consists of the hypervisor. If we examine that hypervisor layer a bit more closely, we'll start to see that there exists networking functionality that is built into the virtual switch. So what we've done with NSX is actually taken the traditional functions of hardware networking that we're all used to, switching and routing and load balancing, firewalling capabilities, and embedded that into the hypervisor itself. By embedding these functions into the hypervisor, we're able to take advantage of really significant benefits that allow you to rethink the data center infrastructure as it is today. we're really able to look at a few things, such as securing east-west traffic between all the virtual machines within the data center. It's done natively by the platform by embedding these functions into every hypervisor in the data center, as you see here. By distributing this embedded model into the hypervisor, we create a building block for the data center that now adds additional networking and security capacity every time a new host is added. That platform allows us to create what can essentially be thought of as a network hypervisor. It's a layer that sits between the underlying physical infrastructure that we're all used to and the virtual networks above it, which we're all used to. And each of these virtualized networks are able to act in complete isolation from one another, with each of them having their virtualized compute, virtualized storage. Because each of these networks is isolated, there's no way for them to communicate with one another unless they're explicitly permitted to do so. So what we've created is an inherently more secure foundation for the data center. And this ability creates entire networks that are fully in software and bring with it some new implications for how security can be applied. First, the virtual networks are isolated, as we already mentioned, from one another and are only permitted to talk east-west or with each other once you explicitly permit them to do so. But maybe even more important to that is that we're able to embed security functions directly into the hypervisor, and we're effectively able to provide firewalling capability at every virtual machine all the way down to the individual network interface. It's a level of really fine-grained security that's previously been unreachable with hardware-based models. It enables us to eliminate the threats that might make it through the perimeter security that most data centers have today. This is the term that you'll hear over and over again, microsegmentation. So it's that fine-grained security policy and the network controls that enable security inside of the data center, not just around the outside of it. And then we couple that with automation and management capabilities so that you can manage this at an upper level and make it a solution that's not only secure, but also very easy to manage and effective to manage across your entire data center. That's a very, very quick, high-level brief on the security capabilities of NSX and what it is. But there's a number of different use cases that we're seeing deployed across our customers leveraging NSX. And those fit into the buckets of security, automation, and application continuity. Today, we're really going to focus on one of these very specific use cases. It's securing the end user environment. So as we look at mobile desktops, mobile devices, all of the new elements that are coming into corporate networks, there has to be a new way to define networking and security policies to both give users what they're looking for and secure the data center and the end user environments themselves. The proliferation of mobile devices has really had a huge impact on the way that employees work, and it also has had a huge impact on what it means for corporate networks and the way that we run them. Bring your own device, or BYOD, is now really a mainstream policy with thousands of different types of devices and operating systems and applications all accessing our networks daily. It's been a boon to productivity and flexibility, but it's really made securing corporate IP and IT more difficult than ever. So let's take a look at some of the things that are keeping security organizations up at night. PricewaterhouseCoopers did a survey in 2015 called the Global State of Information Security. And they found that security incidents have a compound annual growth of 66% right now at an average of over $5.9 million per breach. That number is actually going up. I just saw another statistic that put that at $7 million per breach. So we're seeing these numbers rise, not go down, unfortunately. And we've all heard about Target and Sony and the DNC, and these are breaches that can have significant financial implications for companies as their brands and reputations are damaged out in the greater market. So the question really is, why do these breaches still occur? As an industry, we've done a really, really good job at protecting the perimeter of data centers with technology like firewalls and more recently next generation firewalls. But unfortunately, threats are still getting in. They're often getting around perimeter defenses completely. And in many cases, such as Target and some of the other breaches we've seen recently, attacks are coming in through low priority systems. So their hackers are getting more sophisticated and they're actually starting to look at what are those systems within an environment that people may not be or organizations may not be protecting as heavily as their databases or their servers that contain their intellectual property, right? And then the challenge that we're seeing is that initial target just gets them in the door. And from there, because we don't have great granular security today inside of data centers, they're able to move east-west between different applications and servers and environments within the data center. And oftentimes, these attacks lie dormant for months and months and sometimes even years, and then wait for the right time to strike. Or they'll siphon off information slowly but surely without anybody ever realizing that they're actually there. And really the challenge is that it's the legacy security model that's allowed all of this to happen. So our focus up to today has always been perimeter-centric, meaning that we have a firewall at the perimeter of our data center, and our goal is to stop all of the bad traffic and allow the good traffic through, which sounds very simple, but it also creates a lot of vulnerabilities because if a hacker or some other type of threat is able to get through that perimeter defense, then they have free reign over our data center. And that perimeter model just simply is not working. And it's not compatible with the world that we have now, which really requires security everywhere. And it's no longer good enough to only implement security controls at the perimeter of the data center, but now we really have to look at where they're required throughout the internal data center and try and get security controls as close to each workload as we can. But this can be really, really hard to do looking at legacy infrastructure. Implementing physical firewalls internally to segment out and protect the data center network is expensive. And virtual firewalls running in VMs are costly and sometimes complicated, and there's also sometimes some throughput issues with those. So we are not talking about virtual firewalls here. We're talking about an entirely new way to look at designing and running a data center. So that's the macro level view of the state of data center security today, and we're going to come back to that. But let's drill down into the security problem through the lens of mobile computing and mobile devices. Mobile devices obviously need access to applications and resources within the data center. That makes general sense, right? But users now really expect to access all of their enterprise applications from wherever they are and whatever device they have. They also expect to be able to access their personal applications, typically from the same device, depending on the organization you're in. And the way that we've traditionally enabled this is by providing VPN connectivity from the device to the data center. The problem is that it's no longer a one-to-one world. No longer does this one device only need to access one server or one application. Those days are long, long gone. Devices now need to access many different servers and resources within the data center. And that means that organizations normally open up unrestricted access to the data center network through their mobile devices. So they allow VPN into their data center, and then once you're into that data center, you have access to the corporate network and all the applications that come with it. The challenge becomes that if an attacker does get in through that mobile device, and they've got access through the VPN into the corporate data center, then they can move from app to app, app to VM, back and forth throughout the environment with very little protection in between. Luckily, VMware customers have an answer to this issue. We've talked a little bit about the challenges that are caused by traditional security architecture and from expanding the footprint that a mobile workforce brings us and that we have to secure. We'll come back to this, but let's take a quick look at how the mobile world is changing and what that means to those of us who are charged with securing a company's data. As with so many topics in technology today, there are divergent paths between what a standard business IT user is looking for out of technology and the demands that are being put on IT to provide a secure and compliant information technology center. In short, users expect the freedom and flexibility they've become accustomed to on their personal devices, but IT still has to have visibility and control. Very frustrating from that perspective. At VMware, we believe that an effective mobile security means securing all mobile endpoints, networks, and applications for all of our user sets. And we believe it really can only be accomplished with a flexible and software-based networking approach. Application-level access is critical, and policy and management controls that simplify these processes, not make them more complex. So Airwatch is the product group within VMware that offers really a comprehensive end-to-end security architecture for mobile environments. Now we're going to talk a little bit about how you pair Airwatch with NSX for microsegmentation, which we talked about earlier, to create an environment that is vastly different than what we have in mobile security environments today, much more secure, but not taking any feature functionality away from the enterprise user. So let's look at how mobile security is typically handled today. Today, as I mentioned, you have an enterprise user with a device. Maybe it's an iPhone, maybe it's an iPad, maybe it's some other type of tablet. They're connecting over the internet generally via VPN, whether that's a hardware-based VPN concentrator or some type of software-based solution, into the data center network. And really the focus is on network admission control. So who's allowed in, who's allowed out, and what can they do when they're there. The challenge that creates for us is really twofold. So for this example, imagine the case of a healthcare provider, right? And we have a user on the left side, and his name's John. He's a doctor, and he uses his iPhone for both personal use as well as access to patient applications and corporate email while he's at work and also while he's on the road. Today, he uses device-level VPN as described before. And this really causes two issues. The first issue is that when logged into VPN, John's device has access across a broad set of servers and applications within the data center. The second issue is that when logged into VPN, John's use of personal applications are also traversing the corporate network. So it's causing network congestion and security risk points all over the place. So as an example, John may log in from his iPhone to his corporate email, and he's basically in the same server set as patient applications, email, scheduling applications, everything else. And in that same instance, John may flip over to Facebook because he just had a pop-up come through that said, you have to look at this picture. And now he's looking at Facebook pictures over the corporate network and creating additional vulnerabilities for the company. The solution to this, in short, is to look at application-level VPN. So rather than provide full data center or full network access via VPN, Airwatch looks at providing a secure tunnel between the corporate application that's needed by the user and the server resources that are needed for that application. This is a little bit different view of that with an Airwatch encrypted tunnel from John's smartphone back into the enterprise network. And as he opens, let's say, a patient data application, it'll automatically establish a secure connection directly from that application back to the application server in the data center. And when he closes that app and goes over to Facebook, he'll be outside of the corporate network again and back onto his personal device, just going directly to and from the internet, thereby kind of reducing the security threat that comes with having a full VPN open all the time. The last piece of this puzzle, though, is the data center side. So even though we've secured John's smartphone at the app level and allow him access into the applications that he needs, there's still some vulnerability inside of our data center. By leveraging NSX, we'd be able to give John access to the applications that he needs through an Airwatch app level tunnel, and then segment out the different servers and environments that are inside of the data center. So that even if there was, again, a perimeter breach where someone stole John's smartphone and was able to hack into it and get into certain applications, they wouldn't be able to move around inside the data center undetected. So this gives you a little bit better or clearer view of what the entire mobile security environment should look like. It's really micro-segmentation with Airwatch. So we've got John with app level access via Airwatch into the applications that he needs on the corporate side. And then you'll see that there are specific networks and security policies between the patient applications, the email applications, and the scheduling applications. So if there is some type of breach, and let's say that someone's able to access John's email application, they wouldn't be able to then hop over and see patient data. It keeps you segmented and protects you from a number of different levels as you move through looking at this as a full security architecture from end user device to the data center. So let's recap quickly on really how this works. With the device level VPN, really what we have today, the device has full network access to the data center. If we enhance that, we'd move to app level VPN access. So, and we have app level VPN, but we still have full network access for a user or a hacker who is able to get inside the data center. If we look at micro-segmentation with NSX, we provide app level VPN access plus selected networking access. So we really segment out what that user is able to access at any given time. Another way to think of this and kind of to close it out is, and contextualize it in a different way, is to imagine granular security where a DMZ is effectively created around every single mobile device. And that DMZ is specifically tailored for those mobile devices. That's what Airwatch and NSX integration can deliver. It's a truly secure device endpoint all the way through to the data center resources that device accesses. It means that the data is protected and reduces the mobile access footprint, minimizing attack surfaces, and it limits access to corporate intellectual property and sensitive data that might be inside of your data center. Ultimately, all of this helps us to accelerate a user's environment and what we call a digital workspace, and it brings BYOD environments and deployments and the flexibility of those to our users without compromising the security that's essential to the corporate network. All of this capability combined delivers a ton of benefits to an organization. First, it enables the organization to secure mobile workflows, like we just discussed, from the device all the way to the data center. It can accelerate BYOD growth, and often BYOD and mobility programs within an organization stall due to some type of security risk that we discussed today. The BYOD programs that we've seen successfully roll out have a security component that's inherent to them. This solution, NSX and Airwatch together, can really enable an organization to treat mobile users and applications as insecure with the notion of zero trust security. It's not something that we talked about today, but the idea is that everything is unsecure until proven otherwise. And we can enable that type of policy without having any impact on a user's experience as they access their applications. And ultimately, it really helps us to reduce the attack surface of a network. And it limits the access of sensitive data like intellectual property and financial information. And hopefully, it helps us to accelerate what we're trying to accomplish on the mobile side without compromising any of what we need to have on the security.